Alright guys, so here's a real easy 5-minute at-home mobility range of motion test that you can do to test your mobility, flexibility. So here we're going to start with an overhead mobility test. So our heels are going to be together, are a couple inches apart, flat against the wall. Our low back and upper to mid back and the back of our head is going to be against the wall. And with a straight arm, keeping those arms nice and straight, we're trying to lift our arms so we can touch the back of our palm or our fingers to the wall. Want to keep those arms nice and straight. Want to prevent our lower back, our upper back, and our head from coming off the wall. To test that overhead mobility, we want to keep our arms close to the body, nice and streamlined. We don't want to bring our arms out to the side. We want to keep them nice and close to the body to test our overhead mobility. We can go both together. See how far we can go, if we can touch all the way. That's our overhead mobility test. The second test is going to be a hip flexor flexibility test on a door frame. We can do this on a pole or just something to support us. Again, we're going to be kneeling like this. Here I'm stretching that left hip flexor, lower back, back of the head, and upper back against the wall. And we're trying to see how far we can stretch that hip. So if I have to bring the knee forward a little bit, that means my hips are really tight. I can bring my knee back, maintaining those points of contact on that frame, right, to stretch out and to test how flexible the hip flexors are. Third test is going to be hamstring flexibility test. So feet close together, knees straight. We're going to bend down, push our hips back. And first we're going to try and go reach as far as we can down without rounding our back. And then once we've reached our limit, so we don't want to round our back, want to keep that nice and straight, want to go down as far as we can without rounding our back. And then once we've kind of reached the limit, then we can try and go all the way down, even with rounding our back. But we want to do one test without rounding, and then we can do one test to see how far we can touch with back rounding as well. And that's going to test our flexibility in our hamstrings, posterior chain. Our next stretch is going to be a squat mobility test. So we're going to have our feet parallel in between hip and shoulder width. We're just going to squat down. Try and get as close to the wall as possible without any part of our body touching the wall. So without our feet touching, without our knees touching, our chest, our shoulders. We want to keep contact with our full foot on the floor the whole time. Try and get as close to the wall as we can and stand. Our next squat test is going to be the overhead squat mobility test. So same thing, we're going to have our feet just outside hip width, in between hip and shoulder width. Trying to get as close to the wall as we can without touching the wall. We're going to have our arms up overhead, nice and straight, arms locked out. We want to have our arms also straight overhead, not to the side, but straight overhead, right by the ears. And then our last test is going to be an ankle flexibility test. So the goal of this is to have our foot as far away from the wall as possible. So we want to see how far our ankle can be from the wall, trying to touch our knee to the wall, yet keeping our entire foot on the floor. So the farther we can bring our foot away from the wall, keeping our foot on the floor, touching our knee to the wall, the more flexible, the more mobile our ankles are. I want to give that a shot. Again, it's that front ankle that we're testing.